Hello, I am Isa Silver, and I am a 6'2" splenic manifestor, and I'm here today to talk to other manifestors about human design education. And I understand that manifestors are the least likely to pursue education in human design, and I can understand why. Having just been through the foundation of human design education, I now can see the difference between those who have it and don't. And I'd like to use a metaphors, plural, from sailing to talk about that. And the difference I see is the difference between being a beer holder on a sailboat or a crew member or a captain. So this diagram is a basic diagram from like Sailing 101. And I'll use it in a lot of ways, but let's just talk first about mechanics and physics, okay? Most people don't know how a sailboat really works, like how it moves, you know? It's obvious that it can be pushed downwind, and that if you put some sails up and the wind is here, it's going to push on there. But you know, if the wind was coming at me, I can sail somewhere over there. I can sail towards the wind. But how? Mechanics, physics, okay? It's the same physics as an airplane, but that's another story. So manifestors who don't learn basic mechanics are beer holders on a sailboat. The difference between a beer holder and a crew member is these words. There are names for all of these parts in red. When you learn those names, you become someone who can do something useful on a sailboat. And that is the beginning of the education. Now I'm going to drop something. You already have a sailboat. It's your bioform. Who is sailing your boat? So let's pretend those questions impacted you, and you go get the basic crew training, and you're able to name all of these 22 parts, and then you start going to marinas and you start getting experience, right? You actually get to use these parts, and you get to make mistakes in using those parts, and you get to observe other people's mistakes, and you get to observe captains. You get to start thinking like, ooh, I would like to be a captain like that. Oh, and then you start noticing captains that you don't want to be around, right? And so with that basic crew education, you get to start seeing how these parts actually work with wind and water involved. And you get to have fun too, okay? So I mentioned you already have a boat, okay? It's your body, right? So how do you learn to sail it? Well, human design makes it a lot easier by giving you a body graph, all right? The body graph is like your unique one-of-a-kind blueprint for your unique one-of-a-kind boat. There's only one of them, right? It's a one, okay? So by seeing the design, you get to learn more about how your boat is designed to sail. It doesn't sail like all the other boats, okay? If you have emotional authority and you're acting like you have splenic authority, you're gonna meet a lot of resistance. You're gonna make mistakes. It's not gonna be as fun, okay? You can only sail your boat within its physical capacities, right? So one of the things the body graph is great about is that it shows you in black what is visible to you. That's like above the water line on the boat, okay? But below the water line is almost as important. I don't know if I can even compare them actually. I mean, but what's happening below the waterline is subjected to different physics. There's drag down here. You have algae growing on your boat, it's going to slow it down. If you have a keel shaped like this, your boat sails one way. You have a different shaped keel, it sails a different way. But you can't see that under the water, right? If you're going to buy a sailboat for real, you're going to know what that looks like. You're probably going to pull the boat out of the water and actually physically look at it. Human design makes it possible by showing us our unconscious imprinting, what is going on there. So it's competent crew. How do you get there? In human design, it's called living your design. I teach it, other people teach it, I talk about it. I don't know who else talks about it. But anyway, that's the basic, right? That's the one that makes you crew. You can start sailing, you can start learning for yourself with that. Now, the next two foundational courses are called Rave ABCs and Rave Cartography. And that's fantastic education too. With those, I don't see what more a manifestor needs to be a captain. Further schooling could enable a manifestor to teach other people aspects of human design. And an analyst, well, you could become an analyst if you're a manifestor, and then you get paid to tell people about their boat designs, right? But for captaining your own boat, you don't need to be an analyst. Now I want to take a moment to separate from the captain metaphor to a certain extent. The problem with the captain metaphor is that it implies that the captain decides with her mind where the boat's going to go. And it doesn't work that way in human design. If you can respect that human design is mechanics, then you can look deeper and deeper into the mechanics, and you can find in color and tone and base, that's called substructure, that doesn't appear in the typical body graph. The deepest mechanics of human design will show you that there's no choice. But there's no way to appreciate no choice or substructure, in my opinion, without having learned the names and practiced sailing with other people and seen how the physics of the boat work. So what is it that we're really doing if we're not choosing? The choice is whether or not you're going to sail by your authority. And whether you're going to let your not self-conditioning, your not self-mind decide things. Really sailing your own boat, your own bioform in human design terms is about following strategy and authority, or let's just say at least authority, and deconditioning yourself from the lifetime of conditioning that told you that you aren't the captain of your own boat and that you're like other people, because you're not. You're not. You're not like anyone else. You have some things in common with the other 10% of manifestors. You have more in common with emotional manifestors if you're an emotional manifestor, you know, on down the line, okay? You can find those similarities, but okay, you know, you can learn those, but the fun is in sailing your boat, right? Okay? So I'm wearing this shirt that I've had for my entire sailing career. I have no idea how it's still alive. I mean, I really don't. Speaking of which, I wanted to tell you, one day I saw that a boat that was in Hawaii needed crew to go to Seattle. That's minimum 3 weeks on the sea. And 24 hours later, I was on a plane. 4 hours later, or 4 days later, we were sailing. I could make a lot of videos about what happened in the next 20 nights. But when we got to land and the captain said, I'm not going to drop you off where I told you I was going to drop you off. I'm going to take you to this marina. I said, no, you're not. You're going to take me to this closest port. Let me off there. And he did. And well, really big adventure started next, okay? So that's my splenic authority, you know? I didn't plan to sail across the Pacific in October and have some of the most magical experiences ever. I mean, if you don't know what it looks like to have dolphins creating phosphorescence as if they're like comets trailing through the sea while you're the only person awake sailing the boat at night and using your mast and lining it up with stars while dolphins are dancing with you, it's just, there's nothing comparable. Another side of that event was that the toilet broke down on the fourth day, and the last bucket was lost on the seventh day. So I learned how to shit off the end of a boat. Okay, and that's not even the most gnarly of details. Okay, but that was my splenic experience. Okay, I could have never planned that with my mind. So I wish you the best sailing according to your authority on your boat. And I encourage some basic education so you really know what's going on and that you are always going to be okay on your boat until your boat's done. From my piece, see you around.